Hey there, I hope you're having a beautiful day. I'm Becky North, and I'm here with my favorite flamingo, Lacey Verbick. How are you today, Lacey?
Hey, Becky, I am doing so good today. Thank you. Not fine, notice. Not fine for those of you who missed season 2, episode 1. I am not fine. I am so good.
Mm.
It is an amazing, beautiful, incredible day in Indianapolis today. And it's like 75 and sunny and cloudless. And it is just beautiful. So I kind of wish I was recording outside. But other than that, all is well. What's new in your world?
Oh, yes, we have been enjoying. It's been a beautiful week, all week here, I feel like, and I am soaking in every bit of sunshine we can before we're supposed to have a rainy weekend, which, we need, but also like boo. And yeah, excited to spend the holiday with my family just making some memories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead and find your cozy corner, grab your favorite drink, and let's hang out for a bit.
Today, we're diving into the idea of default parent because let's be honest, we've all felt overstimulated, decision fatigued, and one mom away from a full blown meltdown.
Oh my goodness. This, uh, woo. I think there are going to
Woo!
be some feelings about this one, Lacey.
This is a big one. This was your idea. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful. I'm so grateful that this one, came up for you and you described to me how kind of profoundly and urgently this one came up for you. So I'm sure you'll share that as we go along. But I thought it'd be fun. A fun way to start would be to share kind of how this shows up in our own households. Are you
Mm,
willing? Want to share?
yes. Um, yeah, I would say I feel like I need to preface this, so I'm just gonna say, husband, everything that I say, because I know that you listen faithfully, everything that I say is just because we're being real and honest, and it doesn't mean anything other than I love you. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, I would say default parenting. I know, Lacey, you and I were talking, and you're going to talk a little bit more about this, but how maybe it doesn't show up in everybody's house. I would say it does for sure in ours. I think there's a lot of dynamics behind why that I want to get into probably later, but for us, a big part of the reason is we chose to homeschool, and I wouldn't change that decision. I think it's been great for our kids, but um, that means that I'm with the kids all the time, right? I still work and I still do those
Mm,
things, but I work from home. I don't work in an office, and I work from home, and I am the one that is making sure that parenting is happening, and I am the one that is making sure that groceries are happening and that appointments are happening. And um, I'm the one who makes sure that we get out the door on time. And I don't want to give away too much because I think a lot of things are coming up as I'm saying this that I want to insert, but I
yeah.
think that there's probably a lot of reasons behind all of that. But for us in our house, like, I don't know that there would be a way around default parent because we homeschool, because it's like, I don't want to say it's like summer break because they're working and they're doing school, right? But it's like they are here all the time, and they are not going off to school to do those things. And I don't know that it would matter if it was me or my husband. I think that this definitely shows up in our house.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how homeschooling would have a major impact on that. Yeah, great. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. And you know, I shared this with Becky Mom just a little earlier today, but I really think that default parent is kind of not a thing in our house, which may be really unique, a really unique situation. I'm not sure, but in undoubtedly, it'll make this an interesting episode for sure, where we
Yes.
can kind of illuminate the differences between how this shows up for us. But I would say in my house, we're definitely more of a kind of 60-40 kind of ratio with that. I think there is a solid set of things that my husband is absolutely the go-to parent for. For
Mhm.
example, car repairs, maintenance, safety, household things like even some appointments. Even dinner sometimes. Like he works on the grocery list a lot. He likes to go to the store. Things like that. I mean, I would say it's 60-40. He might agree. He might disagree. He might say it's the other way around. But you know, our kids, I think, approach us both just about equally. Obviously, my daughter's off to college now, so the needs that she has look a little different than when they're little. But I would say she actually maybe interacts with my husband a bit more now at this age um,
Mm.
than she did before she was out of the nest, if you will. And so, yeah, I think I can't say that I'm the default parent, and maybe I'm going to have some feelings about that, Becky. So maybe we'll talk about that as we go along. But
Mm.
all
Yeah.
right. I wanted to share, maybe we should share before we go any further, kind of a definition, right? What
Yeah.
is a default parent? Maybe you've never heard this term. Maybe this is new. So it's it's the one who's mentally in charge of all the things. Even maybe when you're not doing all the things, right? And I think
Mm.
all mothers are probably nodding their head right now. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
I know what that is, right? You know, it's the primary caregiver in the home. It's the person that's generally speaking responsible for the emotional, physical health of the children, the well-being of the children, maybe even the logistics for the family, right? And that person carries a heavy mental load
Mhm.
most of the time, and it's invisible to most people, right? Like it's just this big heavy load that we carry that other people really don't see. You know, they're sort of first man up, if you want to kind of give it a baseball analogy, right? They're first up to bat when it comes to, hey, there's a problem, or hey, my kid needs this, or uh, something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Becky, you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I think that is a great example and a great way kind of to start the conversation. I know that default parent is also really being like buzzed about in like the social media world right now. And um yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're going to continue to have about this one because I think maybe we can help provide a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different things. I shared in our house that I feel. And it's funny because I'm thinking about it now, and this like literally has not come up for me in all of the prep that I've done for today's podcast. This has not come up for me at all. But I'm like, I wonder if my husband actually feels like he's the default parent.
Ooh.
Like, does every parent think that they're the default and like that it's that we're just not communicating that to the other
Mm,
person? Like, because I bet that there are things on his mental load that I don't know, right? And I know that there are things on my mental load that I've just, for whatever reason, chosen to keep to myself, right? So I
yeah.
wonder if it is more like honestly more of like even the 60-40 balance, Lacey, that you talked about in households, but we're all we're all just kind of carrying it silently,
Ooh.
and that is why that's coming up. So I'd love to hear your
Or
thoughts there.
yes, or maybe it's because we're all under the impression that it's all on us.
Yeah.
Maybe we believe it's all on us,
Mhm.
whether that's true or not. So
Yeah.
then we're all walking around this world going, yeah, okay, I'm the default parent, and it's all on me, and maybe there's lots of layered stress there. You know, that is just the result of a belief, not the result of the actual truth.
Yeah. Lacey, you hinted into this a little bit, but it's funny as we've started season 2 and we've talked about like the different ways that we want to position, and we're going a little more topic based instead of question based, which doesn't mean that you can't submit things. So still if there are things that you'd love to hear us talk about, you should submit those. But
Yes.
um this one came to me, and I think that we all as people get downloads, and I'm going to say that word, and like we receive information in a bunch of different ways, right? And um I was in the shower and it was like my quiet time and nobody was in there, and I'm like washing my hair, and I got this download about default parenting. And um I'm going to just kick it off right here, which may cause some controversy because it did for me. But the download that I got was like, are we the default parent because we choose that?
Mm.
And I have to be really honest. I'm like washing my hair, washing, and there's so much hair, so it actually takes a lot of work. And um and this comes and I was like, son of a bitch. Like, dang it. Like just this whole awareness that I had never had before that part of that, like exactly like you said, Lacey, is like maybe I am the default parent because I have just taken those plates and I continue to spin them because I'm telling myself the story that it all falls on me.
Mm,
And that hurts a
yes.
little. Ugh, I don't like that feeling.
Hmm. Yeah, I have goosebumps. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
And and in some cases, and I'm gonna take a little bit of a right
Yeah.
turn here, but in some cases, it really does all fall on you, right?
Yeah.
We're there are single parents out there
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
you are by definition the default parent, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
certainly, in no way does what we just shared, diminish
No.
what a single parent is going through, right? But
Mm-mm.
I I think we can choose how we feel about it,
Yeah.
right? Even if you're a single parent or not, I think we can choose how we feel about the load, about the
Mhm.
weight we carry, about all the responsibilities and the depth and breadth of that. We have a choice whether we embrace that and celebrate the wins as we're going through that, or whether we see that as a drudgery and a inevitably overwhelming situation.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 1,000,000%. And I want to like shout out to the single parents, right? Because even though I'm like, oh, I'm the default parent, I recognize that I have a lot of help and I have a
Amen,
lot of
sister.
support. And I think
Yes.
that there are a lot of single parents who do have a really great village around them. And, shout out to the people who are being their village. But there are single parents who are doing it all by themselves. And a lot like so, all I can say is we see you, right? We see you and we see what you're doing, and what you're doing is so 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 important. And
Mm-hmm.
day that's they're going to see that too. And so um yeah, that's all I can
Yes.
say to the single parents. You guys
Yep.
are the true heroes, really.
A 100%. Yep. And something we noted, Becky, was about supported and unsupported default
Hmm.
parents, and we should expand on that because we just said, we just talked about how we are supported. But had I don't know about you, but I hadn't really thought of that. I hadn't thought about how supported I am until just now.
Yeah.
When this just came up, that I am, while I fancy my house a little more of a shared parenting equation, I still can see how important and special it is
Hmm.
that I am supported, that it is shared,
Yeah.
and um how I think mm, it's maybe a requirement that maybe women don't do a good job setting up front in a
Maybe.
relationship, like, hey, like, I expect this, or I need this, in if we're going to raise a family together, like, maybe it's an undefined or underdefined expectation that,
Ooh.
yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead. I know, maybe
No,
that
sorry.
was a
Ooh, I
little
was like, "Ooh,
sticky, that was a little
that
harder, yeah.
no." I felt like no, that was good. I think that, yes, I think there is an idea, a perception of what moms are supposed to be, and I think there are a lot of things that tie into that. I grew up in, I want to be mindful here, but I grew up in a church where like really it was my job to have babies, right? Like and in a very religious household where we were told like the men lead the household, that's what they're supposed to do, and the
Mm,
women raise the babies. And I feel like there is, I don't know if like I can only see things through my own lens, right? So let me just say that to anybody listening. But like, so I don't know if this is just my own like filters that I've seen that I've been working on like redefining in our home and in my life, right? But or if this is like, I mean, obviously there I just shared there were like some religious things there and family things, but like it like is this also societal, right? Because there
mm,
was a time where that's what women did, right? I mean, if we get really honest, a lot of our like in my generation, stay-at-home moms were still a really big thing. Like
Yep.
you could live on a single family income, right? And well, I feel like we live in a much different society now, but but like that is much much harder to do now, and most of the time if there was a parent working outside of the house, it was the man. Like where I grew up at least, and that's probably not the case for everybody my age all the way around, but where I grew up at least that was the case. Like
Mm-hmm.
if
Yeah.
if one parent was working outside of the house, it was typically the man. And
Yeah.
so like we're not that far off from that time where women's job was to take care of the house and raise babies and make sure dinner was on the table when he got home from work.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I grew up. I mean, I grew up with the prime example of exactly that. My dad, my dad was the breadwinner. My dad went to work. My mom was home raising the babies, and I would say that was the case with probably 85 to 90% of the people we associated ourselves with or socialized with. And yeah, and it brings up something I also had noted. you know whether or not we end up as the default parent, or whether or not we choose to be the default parent, what it has an off probably has an awful lot to do with the way it was modeled for us, what
Mhm.
we saw in the
Yeah.
home we grew up in, right? How that was sort of organized, right? In our parents' home,
Yep.
is probably has an awful lot to do with how it ended up for you, or how
Yeah.
you saw that option or obligation, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I mean, uh, my mom was absolutely the default parent, and because primarily because my dad had a job where he would like go out of state for days at a time. He was a locomotive engineer. A little bit of family history there. He worked for the railroad for 42 years, and he would go out of state and stay in hotels and come back a couple of days later, and that was they called it a road job then. And so he was gone a lot. And I mean, I certainly, my mother was not a single parent, but a lot of her world probably felt that way,
Mhm.
as my sister and I were growing up. So she was absolutely the default parent, and I think it was a difficult way to raise a family, but I also think it was not uncommon,
Yeah.
at
And
that time.
I want to be mindful too, because I know that there are like stay-at-home parents now, stay-at-home moms, and like I'm always mindful because I'm like, well, it could be like that for dads, but like primarily we're speaking to moms, okay? So like,
Yeah,
but I know that this fits for dads for a lot. There are stay-at-home dads, and that's a thing, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But when we make I don't even want to say that choice because sometimes we stay home because there's no other option, right? Like childcare is so expensive and those things. And like, but it is still a choice. But like there is a there where you're taking on the primary role of raising the child, right?
mm,
Just like I
yeah,
said in our house, yes, I'm the default parent because I have that primary role, right? I think like the buzziness that we're seeing around this with social media and things like that is, and I'm going to give like a personal story that just happened in our house this last week where it's Sunday morning. My son plays football on Sundays during the seasons, and so he has a game that day. And I'm like, we have to be at the park at noon, which means we have to leave by 11:30. I announced this to the entire house in the morning. Okay, the whole house
yeah.
is all standing out there because he also plays football at like a time where he can't really eat lunch or he could get sick like from all the physical activity that'll happen right after. So we eat a big breakfast. We make a big breakfast together on Sunday mornings where we like carb up, and that like leads them through, and then we eat early, right? So we're making breakfast, we talk about this, I acknowledge because we have some out of the boxness in our house, so I make sure that everybody like acknowledges the fact that we need to leave at 11:30.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will say I had a lot of full moon energy, maybe is the way that I will claim that that day. And so that probably um intensified the situation that I'm about to share, right? Like, so because the only person responsible for my reactions is me. But
Mhm.
um my son is like, he says to me at 9 o'clock in the morning, he's like, "Look, mom, I'm already wearing my jersey." And he like pulls his hoodie out like this, like, sorry, I say it like this. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me making gestures.
Yes, catch us on
But
YouTube.
he pulls his hoodie out and I don't like, I just see that he's wearing an athletic shirt and I'm like, okay, great, whatever. So then we breakfast, we clean up, we're kind of doing our things, and like it's getting closer to 11, and like everybody is in their own world. Like, right? So I get up and I finish getting ready and I come out and I'm like, we need to be leaving at 11:30. Like, and I'm having this thought in my head where I'm like, I literally went through with you guys what time we need to leave. Why would you not think I need to go to the bathroom? I need to make sure I have everything ready. I need to do that. Like those checklists that I think oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes do fall on mom, right? To make
Yes.
sure that we're doing those things to like actually get out the door. Whereas the perception that I have, and I have to say it like that because I don't know that that's actually how they think, right? But the perception that I have is like, mom's just gonna take care of it, right? And and so I'm like, make sure you have all your stuff in my full moon energy, and I'm a little probably more aggressive than I need to be. I'm not yelling, but I'm like, you can tell that I'm probably not right. And I like the whole time, the thought in the back of my head is like, come on, guys, we talked about this. Like, right? So then my middle son who plays the football, I'm like, plays the football. Oh my goodness, I just sounded like my
Plays
grandma.
the football. You know what you reminded me of? Mama in that Adam Sandler movie where he plays the
Oh,
foosball. You
yeah.
know, the
Plays the
mama.
foosball and water boy. Yeah.
Water boy, that's it, water boy. Too funny.
Sorry, that was funny. But my son that plays football, he has this like football bag up and I start going through the checklist. Right? And we've talked about the importance of double checking and having somebody like do that. And so I'm like, do you have your cleats? Yes. Do you have your mouth guard? Mom, I have everything. I already checked. I already have it all together. And I, with my full moon energy, am like, fine, which was probably
I
not the
love you.
way, not the way that I should have reacted then. But I did, right? And that is what it is. So we get to the park and they're like there's a lunch break, and so while parking is normally awful for these games and it's like beautiful and 82 degrees and there's an actual park at like where we play football, so there's extra like outside of sports parents there, there's other parents there, right? And it's picture day, right? And he takes off his hoodie and he looks at his shirt and he says to his brother in the back, "Hey, will you look at my bag and see if my jersey is there?"
Oh no.
And guess what wasn't there? The flopping jersey. I'm like, I tried to ask you. I mean, I felt my mood instantly like, and that's on me. That's not on him, right? But I was like, get out because you're going to be practicing before pictures. Get out. We're going to drive home. Here's my
Oh
phone
my
because you
god.
didn't bring the phone that you're responsible for. So take my phone since I'm with dad, and we're going to drive home and drive back and try to be back before your team picture. So that
Oh
way you
my.
have your freaking jersey.
Oh yes.
And
So familiar, unfortunately.
I think that that is like the from what I've understood and my perception of that is I think that is what people are buzzing about with social media is like those tasks, right? Like the things that have to be done that aren't necessarily being said out loud, right? Like
Yes.
the if we have to leave at 11, what has to be done for us to leave at 11? Because we can't just go to the car and it magically be all done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Oh, such a good example. I have a fun example, Becky, to share that's related. Well, it's along a similar track, but so my son is learning to drive, has his learner's permit. He's 16. He's learning to drive. And in the state of Indiana, you have to get 50 hours behind the wheel.
Mhm.
Okay, in order to get a driver's license. Well, so we are doing the driver, training with him, and he's going to have a professional instructor a few hours also. And we he has a log, like a driving log, an experience logbook that he has to fill out, and you have to be able to submit that to your instructor before they'll approve you to go take the license test. And
Right.
so he's had probably 4.5, 5 hours of experience so far, and I have to check in with him like I have to check in with him like, did you log your book? Did you log your time in the book? Did you log your time in the book? Did you log your time in the book? And my husband is content to just take him out, drive around, loosey goosey. No, I don't care what time it is. I don't know how long the lesson was. We're just going to go out and drive, get the experience. And I'm the one who's holding that. I call it an open loop. Other people may have heard this as well. I'm the one over here holding the open loop. Did you fill out your form? Did you fill out your form? Did you track the time? Did you track, because I know that there's an end result. There's a something that has to get done at the end, right? So
Mhm.
it's not just did I do the one thing, which tends
Mhm.
to be how my husband walks through his days, is oh, I did the one thing. Awesome. But did you consider
The subtasks.
all the steps and the things leading up to the end result, right? I think
Yeah.
that's where default parenting kind of shows up in my world, is it's stuff like that, holding those loops open, right? That's not something my husband is good at. And bless him, he is good at so many things, and I love you, sweetheart. But like that's him. He knows he's not good at that, and he leans on me for that. But I don't
Yeah.
think that alone makes me the default parent. you know
Right.
I think that's a game of skill versus opportunity, right? Like that's kind of why our relationship works, in my
Right.
opinion, is the difference in talent
Yeah.
around
So
that.
I guess I would say to that, like, because I don't know that I think about default parent all of the time, right? It's
Yeah.
in those moments that that comes up, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
so is default parent really just a feeling, right? Because really what it
Mm.
is in whew,
Woo. Girl,
in
that's a
those
big one.
moments, yeah, it is. In those moments, it's this I don't know if it's unsupported because I think that sorry.
Just say just say it.
Whew.
Woo.
I think that it's probably a lot of it about control for most of us,
Ooh.
right? Let's be honest. Because if my husband and he has asked like what can I do to support? And sometimes it's that question feels heavy and it feels like it's easier for me just to do it than to have to lay it all out,
Oh yes.
right? I think
Mm-hmm.
that we can all relate to that.
Yes, 100%.
Um and I think that sometimes there's probably the feelings of like how can you just not know? Like the steps, right? Like how can you just not know? Like why do you have to ask me what it is? Like I'm not your parent, right? Like
Uh,
um that those feelings, but like so and then sometimes I really don't know how he could help,
yeah. Yes.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's probably again like the mental load that I've chosen to take on myself is like that I don't know how to do that. And it's almost always one of those three things. And so then I'm like, no, I've got it. But then I'm pissed off because I've got it. And like, you should know that we have to do things to get out the house. But no, 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 I'm the default parent.
Mm. Mm. It's almost like there's surface level direction, and then there's all the things,
Yeah.
right? Like 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 my husband will come in and be like, okay, now this, right? And that's the surface level direction, but then there's all the underlying logistics, you might say, or details that it takes both of us it sort of takes both of us to catch all the things.
Yeah.
to make sure that all those loops are caught and closed. And I mean, could I mean, are there days where I'm like, it's just easier for me to do this myself, leave me alone? Well, oh hell yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, I probably had one the other day. but but for the most part,
Never.
I'm sure I did. But but I it's, I don't know, maybe there's a little bit of allowing that has to happen here, right? That a little bit of allowing, like, hey, if I allow you to help me, you're probably not going to do it the way I want. You're probably not going to do it as
Yeah.
fast as I want, and you're probably,
Or
and I'm
when
gonna,
I want.
or when I want, and well, I frankly would just rather do it myself, right?
Yeah.
In but truth be told, allowing other people to help us in all of its potential imperfection is probably the kinder thing for everybody.
Right. And why do we have such a hard time with that? Right? Like, I think every person in existence has a hard time with that. It's not just a mom thing, right? But like,
Uh-huh.
for instance, we had dinner with some friends of our family. We were doing like a game night the other day, and shout out if you're listening. I'm not going to use any names because I want to protect and love people, right? But like, we were there, and they were making dinner, and like we'd kind of like split things up, and I'm like, how can I help? Right? 'Cause we got there and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm running a little behind. I'm a little this. And like there was guilt around receiving help.
Mm.
Right. And with the people in my circle and closest to me, I'm like, I would not offer if I did not want to. Right.
Yeah.
Like there's the thing. Let's not offer something if we are not actually committed to doing that. But like why do we insist on trying to do it all ourselves? Right? Because that's really what this comes down to is like you were saying, like the allowing. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to get to football practice and they're not going to have their jersey. Right? Now, if it had not been picture day, I probably would have been like, too bad. You're going to have to
Tough.
play. Like, that's the
Yeah.
natural consequence. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't fill out your driver's log, well, then you're elongating the time until you get your license.
That's
Like
right.
that's the
Absolutely.
natural consequence, right? And I know like for things like licenses, him having all the knowledge and all that is so important. And then it's also like it will be helpful, right? For him to have
Oh,
his license.
massive. It's a massive freedom that's unlocked there, right?
Right.
I mean, for
And
both of us.
so,
Yeah.
but like with all of that, like really, if we were to release control and allow somebody to step in and support or allow the natural consequence, as long as that doesn't mean like you're going without food or you're doing this, like, right? Because we're gonna have to look at like the super serious things, but like, what is the worst that's gonna happen? What
Yes.
is the worst that's gonna happen? And then how can you learn from that?
It's a great question to be asking ourselves. I couldn't agree more. What's the worst that could happen? And it calls back to me also the an episode in season 1 where we talked about Let Them, and Mel Robbins' amazing book,
Yeah.
Let Them. The Let Them theory is what it's called. And I've just been practicing that so much more in my daily life since I had the opportunity to read that book. And it's right in line with all of that, right? Like, let other people participate in the parenting. Let that other parent come in and do it differently and maybe wrong in your opinion, right? Let them have the experience, let them participate, let them take a load off you, let them make the kids look like crazy people on the football field if he forgot his jersey, right? Whatever. Let those things happen. The
Hmm.
more we can say, I don't have to hold it all. I'm
Yep.
going to I'm not I don't have to control it all. I don't have to hold it all. I'm going to focus on what I can do, what I can control, what
Mhm.
I can how I respond to situations, right? That's part of her book is let them, but also let me, right?
Let
Choosing
me.
how I
Yep.
respond to situations, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we probably, for those who consider themselves default parents, we're never going to probably let go of that, right? We're probably never going to be not the default parent. but can we lighten our load?
Yeah,
Can we
because you
can
can.
can we reach out to others and delegate some things? Can we, can we
Yeah.
share some loops, right?
Yes, 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 a million times yes, because you can love your family and you can want to show up for your family and you can like want what's best for them and you can need a freaking break,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
listen, my kids will walk past my husband sitting in the living room to knock on the bathroom door, right? So what do you do in those situations? You set the
Mhm.
boundary. Like if I'm in the bathroom, leave me alone unless it's an emergency, right? Like
Right.
we like talk to your partner. And guys, like listen, I know those conversations are hard. Right? It's hard.
Yeah.
Like and it that goes back to like the accepting help, but to be like, "Hey, this is what I need." Right? And goodness, I feel like I've told so many stories today, but like I recently was having a conversation with my husband about we sleep very differently. Like he likes it to be pitch black, completely soundless, like no, like he doesn't we don't even plug in the alarm clock because like the light from the alarm clock is too bright. Like I mean,
Goodness.
um and that's what he needs to sleep and he typically goes to bed before I do, like on weeknights and stuff like that, because he gets up earlier in the morning for work. So that has worked out for us. Because once he's asleep, he's normally really hard to wake up. But like the getting to sleep is hard for him. Whereas I lay down and all of the things go through my head, like the running
Yes.
checklist and all of the things. So I have to have noise. And like a noise machine is not enough. Like, and everybody listening is going to give me all kinds of grief for this, but I have like a specific show that I've watched a million times that I don't actually have to watch because I've seen it and I don't like, I'm not tuned into it anymore, but it's enough quote unquote noise to make my brain stop.
Mm.
Right. And like, I know that there are tons of opinions about sleeping with the TV on and things like that. And like, listen, I'm down for that. But like, I think that there comes times also where we have to be like, what, like, I have to sleep. Right.
Of
And
course.
and we were talking about that and I was like he was talking about how hard it is for him to get to sleep and stuff like that and I said I don't know how to say this without sounding bitchy and those that's kind of like what I said to him and I was like and I don't mean it like that but I'm hyper aware of what your needs are for you to go to sleep and I used to try to make sure that I was like hitting every single one of those to make sure and then I had to stop and say hey, I have to sleep too, and I'm a better me if I do that. And so I need to do the things for me to make sure that I'm I'm getting what I need too. And like, so how can we find medium, which we have done, right? But he was like, his response to that was not what I was expecting, and not that he's not an amazing man, but I was like, that's kind of a hard thing to hear. Like, yeah, I know what your needs are, but I quit thinking about them, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not, what I meant, but I was afraid that's how the delivery was going to be. And I was like, yeah, that's the thing. And he goes, "No, it's much better for me if you do that. If you make sure that you're taken care of. That's
Oh,
much better for me." And I was like,
interesting.
"Huh." Right?
Oh.
So like have the conversation even if you think it's hard cuz A you may be met with something that you weren't expecting and B like listen, nobody is mind readers, right? Like we got to speak up. We got to
Mhm.
like all of it. I don't care if you're a mom, if you're a dad, if you're a grandma, if you're like good our dogs let us know when they need something. Why wouldn't we as people let the people around us know that we need something? And like
Mhm.
find the tools that help you. So when you're in the full moon energy trying to get out the door, this is what we need. That's probably not the time to define that. But when you have a clearer head and maybe you're reflecting on the situation, maybe it's we need a checklist for when we leave, this is what we need. And I know that that sounds crazy, but guys, like, if it takes away the pressure, is it worth it?
Yes,
Is a
absolutely.
checklist worth it? Like, if, like, I know you have heard Lacey and I talk about like the cozy calendar and like setting those things up. So maybe we put like, maybe part of the calendar is not just leaving, but it's prepping to leave,
Yep.
right? Maybe it's a family command center. Maybe it's whatever that looks like for you. Is it worth it to say, hey, let's sit down and put a little extra work into this so it's clearly defined, right? And like, then even if you have those expectations, right? And then you put it into practice and you let them.
Yes. And if something goes wrong when you're letting them, they're learning.
That's right.
And so are you,
Yeah.
right?
And that may teach us a better way.
Yes. And the, this made me think about something. My husband and I were sitting around the kitchen table this morning having tea and breakfast, and I mentioned to him what we would be talking about on the podcast today, and he's always very excited to share his inputs, and sometimes I'm actually incredibly surprised at how profound his insights are, and sometimes
Mhm.
I'm like, uh I don't have any idea what you just said and leave me alone. Right. Like sometimes it's that. But for the most part, he always has some really neat things to say. So one of the things that he said that made me it just this made me think of it is he said, if you criticize your partner's parenting and you and make your way the only way, that right, that something can be handled, your partner's gonna your specifically my husband says men will likely give up, defer to
Mm,
you more frequently, and eventually quit trying because they feel like they can't make it happen the same way that you do.
mm, ugh.
And I was like, oh, gross. That's like 25 layers of shit to unpack. But isn't doesn't that make a lot of sense though? That like we have to, like you said, Becky, set the groundwork with a tool or a checklist or a
Mhm.
cozy calendar or whatever. And then we have to be able to release the way it's done. If
Yes.
someone is participating with us, for example a spouse, right, our what the way we would do it can't be the only way, or we are
Mm,
actually disabling our only help.
mhm.
And
Yes.
isn't that kind of hard to hear?
Right. It is. But like also, I don't want to be like, I'm siding with the guys here, but yeah, like nobody wants to hear they're doing it wrong over and over and over. There's only so many
Yes.
times that you can be told that was wrong before you're just like, well, fuck it.
Well, fuck it, that's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He said he here's another interesting thing he said. Well, first of all, we got on the actually before I go there, let's lighten it up for just a second because that was a big one. We were while we were having breakfast, he was like, who's the default parent? Raymond. What's Raymond's wife and Everybody Loves Raymond? Was her name Deb?
I think
I
so.
think her
Yeah.
name was Deb. Anyway, he started going into all these TV shows, and he was like, "Ooh, I know who the default parent was in that TV show." And so we we spent like 10 minutes going back and forth about who was a good example of default parenting.
June Cleaver.
June Cleaver, there you go. And he also cited Malcolm in the Middle. Remember that show
Mm,
from like the
yep.
90s? Malcolm in the Middle's
Mm-hmm.
that mom was like totally default. And even the one that made me laugh was Married with Children, like Peg Bundy.
Mm,
Al Peg and Al Bundy. And I,
yeah.
and I, while I wouldn't necessarily say she was the definition of a capable housewife and mother, she was, though, energetically she was the default from a
Mm,
perspective of like, this is how it's going to go and these are my rules and I'm
yeah.
like she was in that sense, or at least the parts of her that we got to see in the show. But it
Right.
I just thought that was, I don't know, fun little break
You know, I was
aside.
like, do you know what's interesting? The show that popped up for me, which is interesting, but it was The Fresh Prince, but it
Ooh,
was actually the uncle
the
was the
uncle.
default parent.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. You
Agreed.
could tell like he was the one who, and I thought that the mom the aunt or the mom, aunt slash mom in that
Yeah.
role. She was wonderful, and I loved that show. Like, right, but like there is an example of where it wasn't, and he did work outside of the home, but it was like my house, my rules, my this. Like he was
Yep.
typically the one that was stepping in to the situation. So
Mm-hmm.
that's fun.
Interesting. Yeah.
Or
If you
Marge
think of
Simpson.
any, shout them out to us on social media. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I could tell you more about what my husband had to say to me at the breakfast table, but why don't you go ahead and share, Becky?
Um, I uh I just am gonna say that I'm having a hard time putting this into words. I apologize. Like,
It's okay. Take your time.
I think we are in a big, scary place in the world. Like, I just feel like, and it doesn't matter, like outside of government and all of that, right? Like, it just, if the, it feels shaky. Like, almost everybody I've talked to has said that. Like, it just feels shaky. And I think that there are
Yeah.
great things happening and there are not great things happening. And there are, like, right. And I think that social media and 24-hour news outlets and having like carrying around computers for phones like really puts that right in front of us. And um
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a bold statement. I think that whether you're the mom or the dad, that maybe you're choosing default because it feels like something you can control in a whole lot of space where there is no control.
Oh, yeah.
And
Mm.
uh I get that because I'm obviously there, right? And I'll say like this download happened because I needed to learn something from it, like, right? Like, and I have had a lot of big aha moments in this, right? This recording, but I think that um the biggest the biggest message that I'm getting is that um in order for everybody in our house, our spouse, our children, our like if you have foster kids or if you have other whatever that is, whatever your house looks like for you, that the way that they are going to be able to make their own impact is with empowerment.
Mm.
And if we are choosing to take the reins and hold on so tight and not let go and not share, we are taking that empowerment away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there is a mom out there who needs to hear this right now, right? Like, cause
Mm.
I can feel it in my soul, but like we read the memes about, the wild child or the one with big feelings and they're going to change the world and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. But like, listen, they are building the foundation for that right now. Right now, they're building the foundation for that. And if we let go just a little bit and let them, the change that we're going to see in the world is going to be so much bigger than if we keep a hold of those reins.
Mm-hmm.
Because the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. If I don't talk about it, if I don't give them control, if I don't let them make some choices or say, what do we need to change? What do we need to do? How do we get there? We are literally going to drive ourselves insane trying to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. So, mama, you have permission to let go. You have permission to let go.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Like, we don't stop growing just because we're grown ups. And this may be a moment of evolution for you that is going to impact generations to come.
Mm-hmm. Because we can define what default things
Mm,
we accept
Yeah.
what, how, how how basic or sophisticated our um, parenting is, right? How open or how closed our parenting is, right? All of that is a decision that we get to make. It's all a dial we can adjust, right? And
Yep.
letting go of having to. I think, Becky, what I got from what you just shared is what really hit me was that being the default parent doesn't mean we have to hold it doesn't mean we hold it all in and close it all up and you know
Mm-hmm.
tighten up around it, right? That
Yeah.
we can say, hey, I'm going to allow this, or hey, I'm going to get some more support, or hey, I'm going to we're going to pare down activities, right? So that my plate is less full,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever
Yep.
that is, right? Yeah, so I thought beautiful. I loved
Mm.
it. Awesome. Oh, wow. Goodness. A lot of beautiful things came out of this episode today. I guess I'll close this up. You know, I hope this episode gave you lots to think about,
Mm.
right? Lots to consider. If you're the default parent, what would happen if you redefined
Mm.
how you see yourself, or how you see the world
Mm-hmm.
around you, right? If you're not the default parent, maybe consider what it might feel like to be in that seat, and see how and think about how you could come alongside that other party, whomever it is, and show up bigger,
Mm-hmm.
offer more support, dig in, right?
Yes.
So thanks for being with us today. Until next time.